Welcome to another episode, Pound for Pound Box Report, episode 249. I am your host, Michael. Joining me this week, Daniel from The Inscriber, Jacob from Jab Hook, Gus from Corruption and Boxing. What's going on, fellas?
Salut, Mike.
Good evening.
Normally, I would have Gail from Communities Digital News, but she's traveling right now on the way to Vegas. Well, she will be covering Canelo and Jacobs for Communities Digital News, so you won't be able to listen to her on the show this evening. Hope to have her back next week. For those who are new to Pound for Pound Box Report, Pound for Pound Box Report, live YouTube show, podcast, as well as blog discussing all things boxing. And the motto is, when boxing is good, we will talk about it. When it's bad, we will talk about it. Bottom line is, if it concerns the sweet science, we will talk about it. If you want to find out all the information regarding Pound for Pound Boxer Report, the blog page is the place to go to, p4pboxerreport.wordpress.com. That's the link. Check the right of the blog page. You will find links to where to find us all over social media, Facebook, G+, YouTube, and the like, as well as where to find us on all available platforms that carry podcasts, including now Spotify. We've recently been added on to Spotify. Let's get the show started this evening. Going to recap what happened in boxing Friday and Saturday. To be specific, let's start off with the action that took place Friday, Inglewood, California, at the Forum on the DAZN card. Main event of that card, rematch between Srisaket, Rungvisai, and Juan Francisco Estrada. Estrada won 2 points, I believe, on two judges' scorecards. Even on the third, I think it was. I could be wrong about that third scorecard. Fight was should have been wider in favor of Estrada, in my opinion. My go to you, Jacob, since you were live at the fight. For me, let me say this first and foremost, and I want to thank folks who are joining us live in the YouTube chat. Shout out to Ola for joining us live on the YouTube chat. For me, in the aftermath, I'm hearing a lot of discussion about this rematch was fight of the year consideration, fight of the year worthy. I'm gonna be contrarian here and say I don't think so. I want to give credit to Gallo Estrada for how he fought. He was sharp as attack early, and he stayed on it for most of the fight. My disappointment comes in, and the reason I don't give it fight of the year status is because I'm dismayed by what I saw from Srisaket, who began the fight as a right-hander, stayed righty for basically 2/3 of the fight. Yes, I know he's fought right-handed in the past, but in this rematch, because Gallo was so sharp, because he was so on point, he was ready from second one, and he was dominating the action. He made Srisaket look slow in there. He made him look lethargic. And you could tell he was confident because he started to oddly shuffle in the sixth round. It wasn't until round, I think, 9, I believe it was, that Srisaket finally went southpaw. And when he went southpaw, he finally had some success. So for me, I give Estrada credit, but the reason I don't put it up there in fight of the year consideration, because the Srisaket I saw last fight, in this fight, that was not the Srisaket that we saw in the two fights against Chocolatito Gonzalez. It wasn't the Srisaket that we saw in the first fight against Estrada. He looked like he lost something in there. Your thoughts, Jake?
Yeah, I mean, so just to clear up, it was a unanimous decision. It was 116, 112, and then two 115, 113.
You're right. You 116, 112. I was thinking of the first scorecard. I'm sorry.
No worries. But yeah, I mean, it was to me, the fight was very close to how the first fight was, but like in reverse, where Estrada started off really slow and like started to make his impact like in mid to late rounds. But in my opinion, by that time he had already he gave away too many of the early rounds. So Rungvisai ended up winning that fight. I thought he deserved to win that fight. And this one, I think Estrada, having looked back on that experience, because it was at the Forum also last time that they fought, the first fight, and that was it was his crowd. There are some Thai fans there, but they're few and far between compared to the Mexican fans there. But he still wasn't given the decision, even on a close fight. So in this fight, I think his strategy was to come out, guns blazing, and just like not leave it in, not leave it for chance, by giving away any round. So he basically, he's very aggressive, and like every time Rungvisai would throw something, he would kind of come back. He had some really nice combination punching. He worked the head, he worked the body. He took Rungvisai's punches really well. He got clocked a couple times, and it didn't seem to phase him. Like he looked really strong. He looked really, he was confident. Every time every round ended, he like kind of cocked his hand like in a victory, like, yeah, like, I got this. And so, I think he was just, it was his night. And the reason that I would give it is still a consideration for fight of the year. Like, I understand what you're saying, Mike, that Rungvisai didn't fight the way that we've seen him fight before. But as if you just take away that part and just look at the fight as a standalone fight, every round there was like, to me, there was constant action and there wasn't a lot of lulls in the fight. So it was very entertaining. There was still a lot of back and forth, and, each guy was landing this and that, and it was exciting. The crowd was into it. Both the Mexican and the Thai fans. So that's why I would still consider it. And I thought it was actually a better fight than the first fight, even though the first fight was so good. But I get what you're saying there. But it was a really good fight, and very important for the division. And it looks like they'll probably do a third sometime in the future, but I wouldn't want to see that straight out. I mean, I think that there's other people that they can fight that have some intrigue, if they can make those fights.
I go to you, Gus. We were doing some discussion about this on Skype as the fight was going on. Am I being a little bit too? Am I being too harsh here with my analysis in reaction to others in their thoughts on the fight? Were you disappointed in what you saw from Rungvisai, and your thoughts on Gallo? Again, I don't want to take credit away from him because he fought brilliant. To Jacob's point, even when Rungvisai was landing with a few shots earlier, he was able to take him. Now he kind of did some foolish things in there late, standing in there and fighting with Rungvisai when he didn't need to. I mean, I was on Twitter like yelling, "Move, box! You don't need it." But overall, terrific on the part of Estrada. Bit of disappointment for me from Rungvisai. Your analysis, Gus.
Yeah, we'll just talk about, the elephant in the room regarding, why Rungvisai elected to fight, predominantly in Southpaw. I expected him to switch, but I didn't expect that. And in hindsight, yeah, it was a bad tactical error, but a lot of conspiracy theories regarding whether they really wanted to set up for a rubber match, whether he had an injury as well. I looked at his open workouts beforehand, Mike. All of his workouts pre-hand were in southpaw position. I didn't see any injuries to his shoulders, to his knees. In particular, I was looking at, because there was talk that he may have had a knee injury. Now, I don't think he did. He's given a few interviews. I've gone on Thai news, spoken to a contact of mine in Asia. From what I've heard, Mike, and I know you guys within the media, he hasn't indicated about any pre-existing knee injury coming into the bout or anything. It was a purely a tactical decision. He has fought 4 times before in Orthodox, but a lot of those fights are not on YouTube. I've seen them on Thai TV, but people don't really know that, Mike, because they've never really seen the Rungvisai before he made his appearance in the United States against Gonzalez, because they don't really watch the lower weight divisions and they don't pay any attention to Thai fighters, so they don't really know what he's like as a fighter. But he has fought, from what I've seen, 4 times in Orthodox. 2 of them were against guys with very bad records, so he knocked him out very early. So nothing to this at a high class world level. But Estrada, in this fight, he was going to come in and fight at mid range and try and get inside. And Rungvisai fought from the outside in southpaw position, but he made the adjustment very early, realizing that Rungvisai and Orthodox didn't have an expansive stance. He didn't have that wide leg out. He tends to torque his punches a lot more into southpaw. He tends to dip levels, go low, and that's his decoy punches, like he's going to go low to the body, but then he'll come back with a swivel hook or a left cross, and that's his main bread and butter attack over the years. But Estrada realized in Orthodox, he was relying mainly on his right hook, not jabbing as much. So Estrada kept busy at long range. He was very accurate. I think the punches were easier to see because there was obviously, less talk on the punches. He was in more of a compact stance, but Srisaket the stability wasn't the best in the Orthodox. Estrada took the power off the punches as well. A very wise decision. Shoe shining a lot more, then in between that, combining with some heavier punches, so he varied the power and the intensity of his attacks. And the great thing to do against power punches, especially two-handed power punches, he kept forcing Srisaket to turn every time. And power punches hate that, meaning that he couldn't really set his feet to try and, open up because he overloads on his punches. We know he's a 95% power puncher,
Right.
one of the most highest in boxing, and body punches. So kept forcing him to turn 90 degrees, which kept forcing him to reset, and then Estrada would come straight back. His jab was beautiful. In the mid-rounds, he started targeting the body. He was getting more and more confident. I felt he hurt Rungvisai to the body. I saw in round 4, round 6, a couple of mean left hooks to the body. Srisaket temporarily sort of disengaged, but he's a very well-conditioned, teak tough, like a little war machine. Very, very difficult to sort of budge. Good chin. Estrada very comfortable. We talked about last week, Mike, how mentally he was up for the match. He wanted it so badly. Preparation was fantastic. He kept coming good shape, good game plan. He was sharp, focused. He wanted this so badly. So I think collectively, all of us on the panel here made a lot of great points last week. Hell of a lot of people got this prediction wrong. They were all going for Rungvisai, but as I mentioned, Mike, these guys don't really know him too well. But yeah, Rungvisai, even when he switched back to southpaw, then he halfway during the round he switched back to orthodox. So very bizarre. No urgency from his corner. Somehow they felt they were winning the fight. I felt he may have won 4 rounds, but I don't think he won all of the rounds entirely in southpaw. I think Estrada may have had better even the 12th round, I felt, but it doesn't really matter. It was a wide, convincing win. Fantastic display from Estrada. I think he's elucidated that has been one of the best, most skillful boxer punchers in boxing for the past 5-6 years. A real gem, when he's motivated and he's focused, he's tremendous. And he'll fight anybody, anywhere. Avoided for many years as well. So it's good to see him, get some shine. I'd like to see him run it straight back, Mike. But if not, get Donaire,
Pound for pound worthy performance.
Yeah.
For me, from Estrada, who to me has been borderline top 10, top 15 fighter pound for pound for quite a while now. He just hasn't got the credit that he deserves in terms of his ability. One of the most skilled fighters around, regardless of weight. Now go to you, Daniel. Your reaction to what you saw Friday in Inglewood.
To me, it was always a combination of two things. It's a combination of Estrada really seizing the moment because he's come close so many times. Like you can make an argument he beat Chocolatito in their fight. You can make an argument that he beat Rungvisai in the first fight. So he's always had the opportunity and he wanted to seize it. And then on the other side, we have to remember SSR has been on a little bit of a victory lap in Thailand recently. So he may have grown a little bit complacent about what he needed to do. I'm pretty much over-relying on his power to save him. And then from the minute of the first round, when he realized that Estrada he meant business, and he meant business from round 1, it kind of may have thrown him off his game, and probably why it took so long, along with the body shots that started. I think that from the third round actually is when Estrada started attacking the body and started landing pretty well in the fourth, where it took him that long for Rungvisai to finally just switch southpaw and then have a little bit of success. But even then, afterwards, he switched back to orthodox. So it was very, very great performance. It validates everybody who thinks Estrada is a pound for pound fighter. It shows the skill set that he had, the skill set that a lot of people have ignored, and people ignore it because of his lower weight classes. And at the same time, it is a little bit. I could see just in that performance how people can call it a fight of the year, because you rarely see a fight where somebody puts it together that cleanly, that efficiently, and that effortlessly. If for a person that's not named Vasily Lomachenko. And when you see that happening, that's worthy of a performance like that. Now, the side effect of that is, and this is something that has to go into it. This is the second time that Eddie Hearn has promoted a fight, and a fight that will be on a Friday. And unfortunately, the crowd did not really look that full in that ring, and you figured like it's the Forum, it's a Mexican fighter. You figured it'd be full, but it does show a little bit that Eddie Hearn still has many, many ways to learn as far as actually being a promoter in the American market.
I'll go back to you, Jacob, quickly. You was in attendance for this card. What was your estimation of the crowd size?
Yeah, we were talking earlier. I think maybe in like the 4,500 range, maybe. They had a lot of the Forum blocked off. The top section was all blocked off. The behind the media was all blocked off. So I mean, it was basically retrofitted to hold a smaller crowd. It's definitely less people than the first fight, and I think the first fight, which was also at the Forum, I think it had like 6,200 people or something like that. But I will give credit to Hearn. He's just getting into the USA market. He obviously has a lot to learn. It was a little perplexing for me why it would be on a Friday, like we talked about earlier before the show. Like here in LA, traffic is a big thing, and people getting off work and stuff. They don't want to make that trek to close to the airport, where Inglewood is. It just to go 10 miles, sometimes it could take you 45 minutes, it seems ridiculous, and it is. But it's a hard thing to try to get after work and get down there. So maybe he probably might want to stay away from doing the fights on a Friday. Fridays typically here in the LA area are for kind of the up and comers. Like Oscar De La Hoya used to do his fights at the Blasco on Fridays, or he'll do it at the Fantasy Springs. But it's a lot of the up and coming fighters, not like what could be a big card like this. But I will give credit to Eddie for at least making the card itself I know we'll talk about more about the card, but the card itself was really good. He made, he promoted this fight, he made this fight happen. So, I have to give him credit for that, because I wanted to see a rematch, and, it probably should have been Superfly. Was it Superfly 3 should have been this fight, but, it ended up not working out that way. So, I got to give him credit for at least doing that.
Now let's quickly talk future here. Gus alluded to kind of the elephant in the room and the theory that was going on in regards to SSR strategy. Estrada was asked after the fight, what did he want next? Would he fight a third fight with Rungvisai? He said he would, but his first preference would be a unification bout. You got Kalajdzic fight, BA champ, Ancajas, IBF champ, got the BO out there as well. Given what Gus alluded to earlier, given the swirling rumors that Srisaket was having weight issues leading up to the fight, Do you think we will see a third fight between the two? And if so, will it be? Will they just run it right back, or do you think Estrada will go for another fight or two, or maybe a unification bout in the interim? And this is for everybody.
I don't think they're going to run it back right away. I think they'll probably try to make another fight with one of, or they'll try, and maybe build up to the third fight. But that's what I think. But if Estrada, I think Estrada beats the brakes off of Ancajas. So I mean, if he can get that fight, he can add another belt to his collection. But that's just me.
Daniel, Gus, your thoughts?
It's gonna depend upon like the intricacies of the deal that Rungvisai has in Thailand, because he does have a pretty decent deal, I think, with a promoter over there. Maybe they won't run it back. Maybe they'll, like say, he'll do a couple of easy fights there, keep him busy, while giving Estrada a chance to go after Nietes, a chance to go after Arcanius, a chance to probably even go after Yafai. So it's a good opportunity. I see Estrada trying to probably getting a unification fight first, but they're eventually going to run it back because, like I said, people know that the Rungvisai that fought wasn't the Rungvisai that fought in the first fight. They know they could do much better than that, and that's eventually going to come into turn. And maybe, like I said, by then it'll be for maybe two or maybe for two belts.
Your thoughts on the possibility of a third fight? I mentioned the WBO. That title is vacant right now, but going to have Kazuta Ioka, who lost to Nietes at the end of 2018 for that belt. He's going to be fighting number one contender Aston Palikte. Palikte, ironically enough, also fought. Well, no, he fought Nietes, and the fight was a draw. Palikte and Ioka going to fight this summer. So the question again, Gus, do you think we will see a third fight? If so, how soon?
Mike, this is just my theory, but the reason why the scorecards were closer than what they really should have been is because Eddie Hearn was anticipating Rungvisai to prevail as it's his co-promoted fighter. He was desperate to make that fight between him, Rungvisai, and Cal Yafai in the UK in a unification. Estrada obviously being promoted by Fernando Beltran of Zanfer. So it's a hiccup for Eddie Hearn. Now, Estrada, he can do to Srisaket what Srisaket did to him. He can say, well, you didn't give me an immediate rematch when I wanted it. So, he can play hardball a little bit. But he's also a veteran as well now, 32. You prefer that.
Okay. Terrific fight.
It has to be a super fight with Donny Nietes. Nietes is obviously 36, 37.
But yeah, but he wants big money. He wants big money, and why not a fight with either Estrada or even SSR? He's still a name. He still has marketability. You can still make money fighting him. So yeah, Nietes, he's in the picture too.
It's a dream fight for me. That's a fight I've thought about 4 or 5 years. It's a super fight.
Which one, Gus? Between who and who?
And Estrada.
Estrada and Nietes.
Yeah, you talk about high level skill. You talk about boxing intelligence, boxing brain. These dudes got these two dudes got PhDs when it comes to skill and the knowledge of the sport.
Yeah, this would be high level power chess. Two of the most sort of cerebral fighters, certainly in the lower weight classes, but you can say in most of boxing, who can make adjustments on the fly. So, Donny doesn't have a lot of time left. He's had a difficult career, largely inconspicuous as well by being virtue of fighting in the Philippines. But he deserves it. He deserves a big showdown. So I hope somebody like 360 degrees promotion who were clean, who were still keen to sort of resurrect the Superfly cards on a different network, etc. Somebody like that, I hope they can broker a deal to put the fight together. I'm not sure if Eddie Hearn is going to. I think he's still trying to get Cal Yafai in the equation, but I don't want to see Cal Yafai in Estrada. I think Cal Yafai is
Yafai is struggling to make weight. Two, in his last couple bouts, he's been unimpressive. And one particular fight, I can't remember against who. The guy who fought who gave Ancajas a close battle. I think his name was Gonzalez. Yafai fought him, and I don't care what anybody says. Yafai lost that fight.
Absolutely, yeah, agreed. Yeah, very, very fortunate to retain his belt. That's what happens when you have a powerhouse of a promoter backing you. So an insulated fighter, and I don't like that, Mike. Estrada has had a lot of difficulties with that, a lot of iffy decisions as well along the way. So I can see him potentially even getting robbed in that fight if he doesn't dominate it. But
couldn't they just do the Rungvisai with the other guy you were just talking about right now? I can't remember. No, Kai.
Yafai.
Sorry, Yafai and Rungvisai, because he has one of the belts, right? So if they that you said that was Eddie Hearn's original kind of plan. If Rungvisai won, if they can run that one, Rungvisai picks up a belt, and then he has something. Because if Estrada wants to, unify the division, go after other belt holders, and that kind of makes the third fight a little bit more intriguing, because then it would be a unification fight, and kind of the road.
I hear the logic, but I think Cal Yafai will be very skeptical about getting in the ring because it's high risk, low reward. He'll say that, look, Srisaket has no belt. He's a nightmare of opponent for anybody at 115 pounds, let's face it. Just a tough power puncher, both-handed. So,
like I said, to me, like I said, everything depends on two things. Like whether or not, like if Eddie's willing to sacrifice Yafai in order to get that fight Rungvisai, or like I said, and we have to see what Rungvisai's deal on Thailand works in, where he might just stay for a couple easy fights. He might just go after titles. Everything really depends on those two dynamics. But I agree with Gus. I agree with Gus in the thing with like, if I'm Cal Yafai, I am not listening to any offer from Rungvisai right now.
Mike, I've got it, man. How about Kosei Tanaka coming up to 115? Him and Estrada.
Ooh,
I'll be up for that.
Ooh,
Gus, why are you trying to contribute to my insomnia now?
Ooh, because let's face it. Sorry, the phone ringing. Because Tanaka is moving up to 115 at the end of the year, beginning of 2020. Word I'm hearing from Japan is if Ioka beats Polite for the WBO belt, he may go for him. He may fight Ioka in a Japanese showdown. But Tanaka and Estrada, that's a hell of a matchup. The question is, where will that happen, Gus? Could they entice Estrada to come to Japan? Can they pay Tanaka enough money to bring him over to the States?
Yeah, Tanaka's talked about fighting in the States and trying to win a belt in the States. So I'm sure they can entice him sufficiently financially to have a big fight in the States. Not sure how it's going to be promoted or who's going to do it, but there's a possibility.
Okay, let's. You got my brain running right now with that possibility. That's as good. That would be better than Nietzsche's versus Estrada, because Tanaka's he's younger. He fights with more vigor. He's more ambitious. He's willing to fight on the front foot. Let me move on. I could talk about that possibility for another 30 minutes. I'm going to split these fights up between everybody here. Going back to you, Jacob, to talk about this next fight. on the undercard of Estrada, or Rungvisai Estrada 2, had a unification bout at 122 pounds between WBA champion Daniel Roman, IBF champion TJ Doheny. For me, Jacob, this was a better fight than Rungvisai Estrada 2. This was a fantastic matchup. Um, Doheny, he got put down early, round 2. I felt it was a bit of a flash knockdown. Uh, but Doheny, to his credit, he stuck through it. Um, got hurt again in round 4, but in round 7, he hurt he hurt Roman, hurt him bad. To me, if that round would have went another 30 seconds, he might have stopped Roman. But you got to give Roman credit here. There's a reason they call him the babyface assassin, because like Marco Antonio Barrera, who also was called the babyface assassin, he keeps this calm demeanor. Um, he has the ability to see the light at the end of the tunnel, to see through the storm. Even when he's in trouble, he stuck through it, stayed persistent and consistent. Went to the body on Doheny. It really hurt Doheny bad with body shots, really from mid round on. Hurt him in the round, put him down in round 11. Uh, Doheny tried to fight back in the 12th, and to his credit, he stayed there. He's one tough dude. For the entire fight. But in the end, it was the body punching, the consistency, the work rates of Daniel Roman that proved a bit too much in the end. Uh, Outstanding contest, Jacob.
Yeah, this was a really, really good fight. Just tons of action, a lot of ebbs and flows. I agree with you that knockdown was kind of a flat. Like he did punch him, but he was kind of off balance too. He didn't look like he was like hurt, and I think Roman was smart. He didn't like jump on him and try to finish him, because I think he could see that it was combination of landing a punch at the right time and him kind of going backwards and falling down. But yeah, I mean I think once Roman kind of figured out Doheny, he was able to kind of come on really strong, and yeah, his body punching was really superb, and he was hurting him. And but yeah, that 7th round was really exciting, because it seemed like the fight was turning, and then Doheny started landing on Roman. I don't think he would have stopped him. Roman's a pretty tough guy. Um, but I thought he was gonna maybe at least knock him down. But Doheny's face was, man, it was busted up. I mean, Roman didn't look like he had really been in a fight, and Doheny's nose and eyes were all puffed up. I mean, he was, but he's a tough kid, man. Both these guys are tough guys. And what I really liked about this fight is after the fight, there were some Irish fans there. I think Doheny's, I think he's Irish, but fights out of Australia. And of course, there's a lot of Roman fans there, because he fights out locally, out of LA. But he's very like gracious in defeat. He was like, he basically just said, like, he got me, he hurt me, and he's the better fighter. Like he's the man. So he didn't make any excuses. He gave him all the credit, and they they embraced and everything, and they were basically being very respectful. So it's nice to see a unification fight, that ends in, they give everybody a great fight. Even Doheny said, I wanted to come here to win, but even my second goal was to have an exciting fight, and I hope that's what I did. And he got a lot of good cheers and stuff. So it was just a respectful, good, clean fight. No foul play or anything like that, and just really excellent fight. Yeah, definitely a contender for fight of the year. It had everything for that.
And Roman said after the fight he wanted to fight Ray Vargas next. Vargas, current WBC belt holder at super bantamweight, junior featherweight, however you want to call it. I think he has a mandatory fight coming up next. Assuming he gets by that, he said his management says they would love a fight with Roman. So again, assuming that Ray Vargas gets by his mandatory, Look to see Roman and Vargas possibly later on this year. Going from Inglewood to Louisiana, where there was World Boxing Super Series tournament matches at junior welterweight and bantamweight. Let's start with the junior welterweight fight. Regis Prograis fighting Kiryl Relikh for Relikh's WBA title in the first semifinal of the Super World Boxing Super Series tournament at 140 pounds. I'm going to you, Gus. Outside of getting hurt at the bell, I believe it was with the left hook. Progress dominated this fight. He reminds me of Daniel Roman, who we just talked about. And the reason that he reminds me of Roman, not that the styles are necessarily the same, because they're not. It's the fact that Roman has a way of making opponents fight his fight, and he stayed calm and composed throughout. Same thing here with Progress. In every one of his fights that I've seen, even against a Relikh who likes to come forward and land a lot of shots, he makes guys progress. He makes opponents fight his fight at his pace. And that's what he did here. He got off to a really good start. Again, he got hurt in round 2 at the bell, but he composed himself, really did a good job of boxing, hurt Relikh badly to the body, put him down to the body. And he kept up the boxing. He kept up the body work, did a good job, of countering and pot shotting throughout. I was a bit disappointed in how the fight ended, as the corner of Relikh said they didn't want anymore. I thought they could have let his charge go out better than that. But overall, really good performance by Regis Prograis. Up against the toughest opponent of his career, he pretty much shined.
Yeah, he must have. They must have been. They must have studied the Kiryl and the Rances, the two fights, because Relikh definitely came into the fight with a vulnerability to the body. And it's interesting, Mike. Relikh did a lot of sparring in the UK with a 140 pound fighter called Jack Catterall, who's an up and coming fighter on the rise. And it's no secret that he's dominated Relikh and he's floored him at least 5-6 times in sparring. So even behind the scenes, there was vulnerability with his chin as well. A pressure fighter, but I think he made a mistake in the first round. He really didn't. He really needed to swarm Prograis. It doesn't matter whether the accuracy was there or not. For a pressure fighter, it normally isn't, but he just had to try and dominate him, constrict his room, but he was very conservative even in early rounds. He was almost wary of his power. Prograis, one of those twitch reflex based fighters that relies on, using that movement up and down with his head and his body, slipping punches as opposed to bringing up a conventional guard, trying to block him. That sort of explosive type of fighter just had too much speed, and it was the velocity of the punch. Relikh just couldn't match him for hand speed. Prograis, good strategy coming down to the body. Once he hurt him badly, floored him. Relikh, you could see visibly, was not only hurt, but he was bringing his right hand, his elbow down to protect his liver and the side of his rib cage. So visibly he was almost telling Prograis, yeah, that is my Achilles heel. So what happens is his head is exposed. Prograis chose to rotate the attack to the head, face, began to do damage there. Breaking him down slowly, but Relikh was still in there. He was still landing a little 2-3 punches, towards the end of the round. His offense may not have been to their design. I mean, in terms of his volume attacks, he didn't quite get to the Prograis' body as well, but he was still in the fight. He's the incumbent champion as well. Chico Rivas talking about protecting his fighter. No, I don't know about that, Mike. I felt the intervention by his corner was very premature. You know, he was still fighting back. He, as you mentioned, he definitely hurt Prograis, where I think he hit him and he banged into the referee or something, if I remember early on. But he definitely looked shooked up, a bit buzzed up. So Relikh still had a little bit of power there. I felt he could have gone on. Maybe it would have been futile, but come on, man, you gotta, you know, you're going for a, you know, a tournament win. You're the existing champion. You know, you've got something to prove because you're going into the fight. You know, the bookies have got their challenger as a favorite as well, so that should give you extra motivation. But he just looked, I don't know, Mike. It was disappointing performance, certainly from Relikh from the opening bell. But Prograis, you know, I don't think he's as good as all of the hype that people are talking about. I can see a lot of deficiencies in his defense or whatever, but he's good on the front foot. But we've seen a few performances where he hasn't looked that good, and you know, whoever prevails in the final, well, you know, we'll talk about that later, but that's not going to be easy for him.
Let's go there right quick. I know I'm making a risky assumption here, but assuming Josh Taylor beats Baranchyk May 18th in Glasgow, how would you see a Prograis Taylor bout? I may be in the minority here, but for me, based on what I've seen from both fighters, I may make Taylor the favorite. Your thoughts?
Totally agree, Mike. I think Josh Taylor is better than Prograis in pretty much every department. Better on the front foot, better inside the pocket, hand speed, power. Not sure, but proportionally, you know, Josh Taylor has a high knockout ratio. I think he's at the better level of opposition as well. Less fights. He's a spiteful puncher as well, Mike. He wants to, whenever he has an opponent. I think he's better with both hands as well. Better body puncher. Technically, fundamentally, I think he's better. Although, you know, Regis is one of those fighters that visually looks stunning, but no, I think there's problems in his technique, Mike. I think the way he shifts his head up against the southpaw, who's coming from that angle where he's hooking. So if he's shifting his head up and down like that, I think that's a dangerous tactic. He really needs to pivot off to his left and, you know, roll his head in the other direction. So I think against the southpaw, who's coming in from that opposite angle, if he's feinting with that left hand and he's coming back with that, Josh throws that lovely sort of underarm right hook, that could give him a bit of trouble. So it's a fantastic matchup. You know, both two young fighters in their prime. You know, really is one of the, you know, could be one of the better sort of explosive fights. But I agree with you, Mike. I just think Josh Taylor is better in most, and I think he will get the better of Regis. Yeah, possibly even.
We'll certainly talk about this more. Again, assuming that Taylor beats Baranchyk next month. But for me, the height and the length of Taylor and the foot speed and hand speed of Taylor, and when Prograis does a good job of head movement, the problem is a lot of times when he ducks and slips punches, he has a bad habit of bringing his hands down when he does it. He doesn't keep good hand discipline when he avoids punches. He just hasn't been in there against an opponent with the hand speed, the intelligence, and the skill set to take advantage of that. Taylor could, and Taylor brings adequate power to the table. Now, of course, Prograis has to punch to hurt Taylor, but it's those deficiencies that I see within Prograis that can be exposed.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Mike. And one other thing, you know, Josh is more versatile because remember he can switch to orthodox and fight in that, so he can create different angles, different faces, different scenarios as well.
Indeed. Just talked about Relikh and Prograis. That was the semifinal of the World Boxing Super Series Junior Welterweight Tournament. On the undercard of that, and I'll go to you, Daniel, you had the semifinal of the World Boxing Super Series bantamweight tournament between WBA champion Nonito Donaire against Stephen Young, who was a late substitute for WBO champion Zolani Tete. Tete had to withdraw from the bout early in the week due to a shoulder issue. Tete was in attendance to watch the fight. And look, Stephen Young, 31-year-old from St. Louis. I mean, he tried his best, but, bless his heart.
He got fucked up.
Too inexperienced, Daniel. Too small, not powerful enough, and it was like slow death. You could see it coming from jump. The professional that Nonito is, the Filipino Flash, he just stayed cool and calm and composed. Bided his time, got the jab going initially, and then he began with combinations to the head and the body, and finished things off. Beautiful left hook to the head, put Young down and out. He was out before he hit the canvas. Candidate for knockout of the year. I mean, what can you say? Donaire did what he was supposed to do against that kind of opponent, and he moves on into the final.
That's pretty much all you can say. Like, he did what he was supposed to do against an opponent who came in on 3 days' notice. And it shows the level of professionalism, like you mentioned, Nonito Donaire, when you spend all your time preparing for somebody like Tete, who's taller than you, has a longer range than you, who presents you different problems, and then you presented this opponent who doesn't have any of that, but your professionalism lets you get into that area. And that way he pretty much set up everything after the jab showed that at this weight class, currently right now, he's probably a little bit more refreshed. I know, like I said, the most he's fought at 130, and we figured it would be tough for him to get 118. It starts to make you think maybe he was just making too much of an effort to try to get up there to 120, 222, 26, 130. And this is actually this best weight for him. But then again, when you have to throw on the other hand, this isn't the best opponent. We have to say we didn't see him against somebody like Tete. The Burnett situation has always been a little murky. So now he's put himself in a position where he's in the finals of a tournament with his likely opponent being now Inoue, most likely. That is going to be an insane test because Inoue is like naturally bigger.
I don't know about that.
Like,
Donaire's naturally bigger.
Yeah. No, that is true, yeah. Over the years, but at such a skill set that Inoue is going to have, it would, like I said, unless he gets lucky again and Inoue gets injured, this is a hell of a run for Nonito Donaire at bantamweight. He'll probably stay in that way until he retires at this point because he's shown to be really good at it.
Get lucky.
In a way, yeah, because
I mean, I thought I wouldn't have counted Donaire out against Tete. I mean, I know Tete is talented, but the way he's fought lately, I think that Donaire could have beat him.
He would have knocked him out. Yeah, I agree.
I don't know about that. I ain't giving up on Tete that quick.
Yeah, I went Mike on that one.
Come on, Mike. You know what I mean? Donaire got titty fucked 3 days before the fight. Mike, how do you pull a shoulder injury 3 days before the fight? Surely the sparring would have been done a week and a half ago. To me, that sounds like a fighter who was low on confidence and got cold feet. That's just my humble opinion.
I just think all the talk of him basically saying, "Look out, guys! I'm coming. I'm here to do damage." I thought his shoulder was probably hurt then. He just didn't tell anybody.
We've seen that. There's always been cases that fighters carry the injuries into training camp, and it gets to the point where they just can't hold it anymore. So that part I'm not going to be surprised by. The situation that's ultimately going to present itself, though, when it comes to is what's going to happen after the tournament, because obviously Ryan Burnett is probably going to want a rematch, and that question with Tete is always going to be there. Well, whether it's Donaire or, like I said, more than likely Nue, whether it's one of those two that wins, everyone's going to be like, but you didn't fight Tete. You need to go fight Tete. So, and it actually... and
that's not his fault. I mean, they can say that all they want, but that's not his fault.
Oh, no, we know it's not his fault. That's the thing. But that's the bad part about the sport. Like, it's not his fault, but he's still going to get criticized anyway. That's the ugly part of it, unfortunately.
Ryan Burnett was on the verge of getting knocked out. It was the body shots that caused the injury, not him pulling anything in his back. You know, I've gone through all of the medical reports, try and find out. There was no aggravation, no slip disc, ruptured muscle, anything. It was due to Donaire's body shots that were causing him.
Yeah, and you mentioned Donaire is moving on to the final to fight the winner of the aforementioned Naoya Inoue. He's fighting IBF champion Emmanuel Rodriguez on the undercard of Taylor and Baranchik.
Brilliant fight.
Indeed.
Brilliant.
I'm gonna leave this last fight up to you guys. Robert Easter Jr., Rances Barthelemy.
Gus has got it.
Listen.
The floor is yours, Gus.
I don't know what's worse. The fact that the way they perform, or the fact that I was stupid enough to watch it, or the fact that in the aftermath finding out that Easter earned more money than Gallo, $250,000 for that joke of a fight? Really? 12 rounds of hot garbage? Really? It was like two guys who they were made like an agreement before the fight that, yeah, we're going to get in here, but we're really not going to do anything. I mean,
Gus is going to break it down for you, Mike.
That was a complete farce. What the hell? And that's all I got to say about it. Y'all can comment on it because I'm done.
Take it, Gus.
The floor is yours, my man.
Is this a family show, Mike?
You cussed on here before, so hey, it is what it is.
There was a fantastic comment on social media or whatever after the fight when the punch stats were shown, given that both fighters had not even landed, I think something like less than 6 punches or per round. Somebody said that, is this a round of golf or a fight stat? You know, and that just about summarized it. You know, Robert Easter, we've spoke about him on this show many times in the past, Mike, and I've said it before. I think he was the worst world champion from any of the 17 weight classes. Extremely fortunate in the past to have kept his belt. Defeat after defeat, you know, in fights which I don't think were razor close, but reasonably close. He's almost regressed before he's even improved, and he's not been on the scene that quickly. Technically and fundamentally, just he's worse than the club fighter. You know, my local club fighters, I've seen some of them these days, and they have a better technique than him. He's got the worst lead hand I think I've ever seen. I can't even fathom anybody who has a worse lead hand than him. Atrocious. You know, his father was trying to give him a bit of urgency in his corner for him to actually start doing something. So I think his father, you know, was just as frustrated as pretty much all of the public. But he never reciprocated. He never followed the instructions. Just an awful. And anybody could have prognosticated it, Mike. You know, Barthelemy has stunk the joint out in the past many a time. Certainly against Relikh as well. Has a bit of skill when he turns to southpaw, is a little bit better, but just doesn't throw enough punches. So the ingredients were there for one of the worst fights of the year, and it lived up to that. And for the WBA to give them some residual trinket belt, well, that just elucidates what sort of sanctioning body the WBA is. These guys, the brakes of their sports car should be sabotaged and their vehicle should just roll off a cliff, because I don't want to see these guys ever again in the boxing ring. And Easter, you motherfucker, you cost me $2,500 as well.
Damn. First, I want to thank Unrivaled Boxing Talk and News for joining us on the show. For those who are listening to us live on YouTube, again, be sure to hit that like button and hit that subscribe button. Again, let's move away from that stinker, that joke, because I'm thoroughly disgusted. These fools get paid to fight that non-fight for 12 rounds, while you got folks like Gallo putting on a massive display, and the hell bullshit.
You know what? I'll say this, Mike. I'll say this. When I did the preview on it on my show, I said these were two guys, and I mentioned it here as well. These are two guys who have physical attributes and never used them. And I never seen such a display of them proving my point than that goddamn fight.
In short, wasted talent, both of them. Wasted talent. Let's move on to some news here. Going to talk about news that broke yesterday. We talked for a while now about the situation with Anthony Joshua. Was set to fight Jarrell Miller June the 1st. Miller, a big baby, tested positive for PEDs. I mean, his system was running full of PEDs. I don't know what he was doing. Just stupid on his part. Well, after a couple of weeks of speculation, we now find out who Joshua will fight. He's going to fight Andy Ruiz. Ruiz, in my opinion, kind of trolled his way into a fight. Well, let me take that back. It was a combination of Ruiz trolling his way into a fight, and then the management of Luis Ortiz dropping the ball, where they had the fight in their hands, but they turned down $5 million, which made no sense. As a result of Luis Ortiz's camp being stuck on stupid, Andy Ruiz ended up getting the fights. Anybody who wants to talk about this, please do. Personally, Ruiz, he's not a bad opponent. Many would argue that he beat Joseph Parker when they fought in New Zealand. He's back. He's on the comeback now. I think in the end, Joshua is just too long for him and too big. But, there are spots in there with Ruiz. He's a very good counterpuncher, particularly mid-range in as you're punching. He has very good eyes. He has a decent jab. I'm going to make Joshua the favorite here, but there are some spots there that Ruiz, he could give Joshua some trouble. So your thoughts on Andy Ruiz as the official opponent now for AJ?
I don't think it's a bad. I mean, I think the one thing that Andy Ruiz that I know he'll do is he'll at least fight. He's not going to go out like a punk. He's going to try to win. He might not win, but he's going to at least put up a fight. He has some skills, and I do think that he beat Parker in that fight. And, Parker gave Joshua some trouble. So this could be an interesting fight. As much as I wanted to see the big baby fight, that guy is... I'm done with him. I was a little bit of a fan of him, and I thought he was going to be something good. But after all this mess of accusing other people and then finding all this other stuff happen, and he blew it. He had a lottery ticket and he blew it. So I mean, I Andy Ruiz just fought not too long ago. I think on the undercard of the Porter.
Ugas.
Yeah, I think it was on the undercard of that fight. He's here to fight, man. I got to give him credit. He take it. He sees an opportunity here, and he's going to take it and run with it.
I'll go to you, Daniel and Gus again. When you look at Andy Ruiz, he may be not the most appealing. Yeah. I was trying to be polite there, but based on his skill set, again, not a bad fighter. Not a bad fighter at all.
No, it's not. He has good fundamentals in his feet for a guy his size. He has great hand speed for a guy his size, and is a very, very serviceable opponent. Whether, like I said, I agree in some sense to why you people would say that Luis Ortiz's team dropped the ball. I get it. Like it is $5 million. It's probably more than he's gotten paid for before in the fight. But I also get like the short risk and the reward aspect to it. At the same time, though, somebody's going to benefit from it. And there wasn't a lot. Like I said, there wasn't a lot of opponents that you can say that you can get and say at the same time that it's a credible challenger. And Andy Ruiz is, despite like the comeback trail, he's a credible challenger. It would have been the same thing like if they would have gotten Oscar Rivas, for example. Like he's a credible challenger, a guy that's in the top 10 in all 4 sanctioning bodies. So it's a really, really good fight on a short notice. I'm not gonna say that Ruiz is gonna have a shot at winning, but I do believe like he'll definitely put up a fight, a much better fight than he's gonna have at this stage. And ultimately, yeah, that's gonna be an interesting fight because I kind of agree with you, Mike, in a way. Like he semi-trolled his way into this fight. So he may pick up some of the slack that Big Baby dropped off when he decided to do his stupidity.
I'll go to you, Gus. Your thoughts on Andy Ruiz as the official opponent, and give your thoughts on the situation regarding Luis Ortiz and what many feel that he had the opportunity in his hand, but let it slip by due to, again, dropping the ball, being silly, being stubborn.
Let's talk about the Luis Ortiz situation, Mike. You know, that's quite interesting. Now, Eddie Hearn has made a statement, and Jay Jimenez has corroborated it. So this appears to be quite accurate. Now, 2 offers were made. The first offer that was made was $6 million. Now, we know Luis Ortiz's promotional situation is a little bit convoluted. Although he's been fighting on PBC cards, Caribre Promotions in Cuba is still his lead promoter. Now, there seems to be some sort of a disconnect between Caribre and Luis and Jay Jimenez. They are blaming greed from the part of the promoter and a lack of interaction between the sort of 2 camps. Now, when there was when Caribre came back and they were hardballing the initial offer, Eddie Hearn went back and made a second offer of $7 million. Now, given the sort of relative short notice, 6 weeks out, Luis, I don't know whether he was in camp or what sort of shape he was. Now, the Joshua detractors are going to say, well, Andy Ruiz is not really a credible opponent. The measuring stick is always Luis Ortiz when it comes to Deontay Wilder. So I felt, Mike, that they really should have overpaid him significantly and got him in the ring with Luis Ortiz. Just a way to finally pacify all of the detractors, because this is just going to be continuing on and on. But $7 million is parallel roughly to what Jarrell Big Baby Miller was. So you couldn't deem that, you couldn't sort of misconstrue that as being lowballing. I think it's, what is that? His highest payday is what, $500,000. So it is a tremendous offer. Oh, they are paying him, given that it's, his training camp is not going to be 8 weeks, but 6 weeks, fair enough. But Ortiz is saying that he would have accepted $6 million. So they're blaming Caribre, the head of the promotions. I don't recall the gentleman's name. I don't know if maybe Daniel knows what it is. But so yeah, I don't know, Mike. Is it Luis Ortiz? Is it really him? Is he really going to get any more? The thing with Ortiz, Mike. Ortiz claims that he's been promised the Deontay Wilder fight.
That's where I was going to go. I'm glad you went there. Call me conspiratorial here.
Yeah.
But you're talking Caribre and others. Could it be a situation where you saw the press conference with Wilder,
Yeah.
and Espinosa basically saying they have big plans for Wilder coming forward. We know that part of that includes Brazil, the mandatory.
Yeah.
We also know that it may include Glowacki in 2020. But we've
Yes.
also been hearing that a rematch against Ortiz. Could it be
Yeah.
that maybe Heyman, Espinosa, the powers at Showtime basically said, "Yeah, I know you got that Wilder, that Joshua fight out there, but we have plans for you to fight Deontay next, or
Yeah.
this, or later on this year." And that superseded anything that Joshua, or excuse me, that Hearn was going to offer Ortiz.
I think that may be the part, Mike. Initially, when I thought about it, Mike, I thought it was an economical decision from Al Heyman, thinking, look, if DAZN is trying to get traction in the United States, then why on earth do we want to give him one of our fighters? Because Eddie Hearn is now in direct competition with the PBC, so you're not going to try and give them an injection of viewers and ratings, which they desperately need. Hence why Joshua, relinquished that opportunity in Wembley to fight in the United States. So it wouldn't have made sense from that sort of perspective. So I thought that's why, Luis Ortiz knows he's half dead now. He's not going to get many better opportunities, or is he? So when I heard that there's a rematch with Deontay Wilder, I felt that'll probably be the reason. But realistically,
Yeah,
Mike,
but isn't that
go on.
kind of short-sighted in the sense that, okay, Luis Ortiz is old as dirt, and
Yeah.
just because you have maybe a written word, or even if you have a contract, if Deontay Wilder gets hurt and that fight doesn't happen, he just let this other fight go, and he has an opportunity to get 3 of the belts to become champion finally, which has been supposedly been his goal. And then he can unify. They know if he gets a fight with Joshua, he beats Joshua. They know they can make a fight with Wilder because they've done it in the past. They had their first fight, so that would be a unification fight. And to me, that path just doesn't make any sense.
One, because in 2019, unfortunately, the promoters run the show and not the fighters. Two, if it's true that part of Deontay's plan is to eventually fight a rematch with Ortiz, how viable would that rematch with Ortiz be if he were to lose a fight against Joshua, particularly if he was to get blown out?
Well, you mentioned it. It's the measuring stick. It's the measuring stick in a way. If he goes out and then Ortiz, let's say he fights Joshua, but doesn't get blown out. He puts out a decent performance, but he still loses. That's the measuring stick that people are going to use, saying, "Oh, well, look, Ortiz took Joshua to this point, and he took Wilder to this point, and Wilder knocked him out. So maybe Wilder will have the edge." That's the measuring stick on it. But in one way, I agree with Jacob that it's a little bit short sighted, because you could have gotten more money than you've ever gotten in the fight before fighting Joshua. But at the same time, you kind of know, like, you were promised a Wilder fight. And let's not forget the whole saga of how the first fight went down, with Ortiz like having the quote unquote cough medicine or the heart medication coming up, and how much Wilder even begged the WBC to just let him fight. And then so, like, there's a lot of actually, like, good misplaced level of trust. Like a good level of trust, and ultimately that is something that probably plays a better factor into the decision.
Yeah, let me reiterate. I'm not saying that this was the case, but you're hearing talk about that theory being thrown around. We just don't know for sure, because on the surface, given the money that they were offering Ortiz $5 to $7 million, $6, $7 million. It just doesn't make any sense for them to turn that down. Wrap this conversation up, Gus.
Yeah, it's an atrociously bad decision from Luis Ortiz. He should have taken 7 million, taken the fight opportunity to fight for 3 belts. You know, they took away his PEDs, but he still gave Wilder hell. I think ultimately he's thinking, I'm going to get knocked out against Joshua. I've got a better chance against Wilder.
Hmm. We mentioned that Andy Ruiz is replacing Big Baby Miller. Big Baby Miller tested positive for PEDs. Well, word came down late last night that Big Baby has received a 6-month suspension by the BA. The question is, and I'll start the conversation with you, Daniel, is 6 months enough? For me, I say hell no.
It would have been enough if it was just only one failed test, one substance. But this is multiple failed tests, multiple substances in a very short period of time. So, no, it's nowhere near enough. And we just have to remember it's not only just that the sanctioning bodies, it's going to be the state athletic commissions. They're going to be enforcing this too. So it's not like Big Baby can go somewhere and try to make money in let's say, if he tries to go to New Mexico or Arizona, because that's going to carry into it. It's not enough when considering what he did, but Big Baby was always at this weird spot in the heavyweight division where he had a good personality. Like I said, he can draw a crowd. He can, like I said, he can get hyped up or fight. The problem was though is that a lot of his performances, the most particularly the recent ones, people really didn't see that the Big Baby as far as like a knockout artist in a way. So that affects his reputation to a certain point. So he's always like in this periphery. It's one of the reasons why I made the Joshua fight a little perplexing when it was first announced. When there were other like opponents that were at least in the rankings more quote unquote worth it. But now he's just blew all of that good faith. It's nowhere near enough. Like a year would have not been enough. But ultimately, it is what it is. It's 6 months, which means he may be eligible to fight in October, near the end of October, the beginning of November. It doesn't, but that's just from the WBA. There's no guarantee that in this case, like the New York State Athletic Commission will easily grant him his license back.
I'll go to you, Jacob, and then you can follow up, Gus. The question, again, as I asked to Daniel, 6 months suspension enough? I say no. I mean, Dillian White gets 2 years for what he tested positive for. Big Baby tested for far worse, and he's only getting 6 months? Come on.
No, this is a disgrace. WBA totally dropped the ball. I mean, again, I know maybe this shouldn't count, but I'm counting it. He has failed a drug test before when he was a kickboxer, so there's a history there. And the fact that he popped for three separate things, not one, 3 separate things, it's nuts that he would just get 6 months. That it just baffles me that they would do that. I mean, in a way it doesn't, because the WBA, does a lot of stupid things. I mean, all the sanctioning bodies are kind of all fucked up anyway. But yeah, he should have, I don't know, at least 2 years minimum for what happened. I mean, again, it wasn't one, and this isn't the first time it's happened. And the fact that he was accusing Joshua the whole time, like that was part of his buildup and spiel. So it's kind of like, I don't know, man. Again, he had an opportunity of a lifetime, and he blew it, and he's not really being punished. I mean, the only punishment he's really getting is he's gonna have what's probably gonna be proactive 6 months. He'll be fighting again, like what normally happens, and he'll be making money again. But not as much as he could have been making, but still, I don't know. It's really disappointing that something like this happens, and if I'm a fighter, this doesn't even really deter me from doing performance enhancer, because I know if I do get caught, I'm going to get 6 months. Now I have a precedent. I can compare my, incident to this incident and, ask for leniency in a sense.
Gus, who is
Yo.
this dude connected to receive such a light sentence?
You three gentlemen are ruthless, man. Come on, man. Have some sympathy for my dog, Big Baby Miller.
I don't.
He had a bad elbow. That's why he took HGH, man. Calm down, man.
BS. I mean, we look. I'm no fan of Povetkin and what he did, but what he took was damn near even worse than what Povetkin was trying to take. Really,
Michael, I've gone back on the Povetkin one. You know that's a far more convoluted one, and the Povetkin one that I can write an encyclopedia on that one, but that's a different story now. With this one, look, the punishment from the WBA, Daniel's already talked about it. It's highly superficial. They don't have no punitive powers to ban a fighter. What it is that he's out of the WBA rankings for 6 months. That's all it is. So technically, he's not going to be in position to fight either a mandatory or a champ or win any of their 43 belts in 17 weight classes, all of the subsidiary sort of belts. That's all it is. Big Baby Miller can get around the system. And the major commissions, the big commissions in sort of New York, and that I think they will replicate the ban, but some of the smaller commissions around the country, will they be as sort of punitive as New York? I'm not sure. I'm sure Eddie Hearn can get around the system. From what I'm thinking, he's not going to jettison with he's not going to cut ties with Miller. I think he's going to keep with him, so he's going to be able to get him a fight somewhere in the States, Mike. So you're going to see him in a couple of months, fighting in Reseda or somewhere. I don't know where, Victorville or somewhere.
Reseda, from where the Karate Kid's from?
The ghost of Mr. Miyagi gonna come back and kick his ass in the chest. Read a couple of comments here from Big Rotten Apple in the chat again. Thanks for joining us and join us live, Big Rotten Apple. He says Luis Ortiz is not going to make $6 million fighting a rematch with Wilder. He said that he would have made more money fighting Joshua. The question he asked is, who's going to promote Big Baby after this fiasco? He will never get a chance to fight Joshua or Wilder after failing those drug tests. Eddie Hearn wants nothing to do with Miller after this. Your thoughts on the question Big Rotten Apple asked in response to our discussion about Big Baby and the suspension?
His main promoter is still Dmitry Salida, no? That's his main promoter now.
Yeah.
I haven't heard anything about.
Yeah, and Salida's not going to drop him either. The situation when it comes into it is just that for the foreseeable future, he's going to be persona non grata when it comes to making a big fight. It doesn't mean that there's a promoter that isn't there. That's the situation that you're looking at when it comes to Big Baby. Like it's one thing where, okay, like I said, you only fail one substance. I get that, but like I said, this is multiple substances in a very short amount of time. So that, like I said, that burns any goodwill that you can have, even in redemption, for at least a year in a lot of people's eyes.
I'll tell you something, Mike. I don't think Eddie Hearn is going to cut ties with Jerome Miller for this reason. Miller has obviously got information about Joshua's TUE, and they wanted to shut him up very quickly. Now, if you remember that some Russians actually hacked into UCAD's databases and they began publishing a number of high-profile athletes, track and field, who had obtained therapeutic use exemptions. Now, Joshua's one was kept very, very, very quiet, but he obviously has some sources on the inside, and they didn't want him expanding about that. And so I always felt that there would be no ban, or his license what it is, it's an application process for a license because it has to be every 12 months. So I felt they only stopped the application process, but they didn't actually impose a ban. So I think he has some dirt on Joshua, Mike.
Oh, that's interesting. I don't know about that, but
yeah.
Oh,
Come on,
like I
Mike.
say,
He was a skinny bodybuilder in the amateurs. He's been able to put on 40 pounds of muscle. I've not even seen any sort of fat, in which a sort of an ended off sort of bodybuilder does, and he's able to maintain that. Nah, something isn't right there with Joshua. I'm sorry,
Mike, you're the expert, man. Can he do it?
he can. It'll be difficult given the cardio needs that you have to have in boxing, but it can be done.
I mean, Mike's a beast, man, and he does it in his house. I mean, this guy's got access to the best money can buy.
That's the thing.
but Mike, he would have to go for a fight. He would need a considerable amount of fat because the fat supports the muscles that you're subsequently putting on. So I've not seen any phase where his body's gone through that transition.
I would have to know, one, how much he lifts. Two, I have to know his nutritional regimen. How many calories is he eating a day? Not just when he's training, but more importantly, outside of training. What kind of training does he do? Not just in preparing for a fight, but outside of a fight. He probably takes supplements. All fighters take supplements, but what particular supplement is he taking to carry that kind of muscle and to retain that kind of muscle, given the cardiovascular aspect of the sport? Like I said, it can be done given what we know about nutrition and fitness. So I'm not going to.
I mean, he gets tired in his fights,
but it would be difficult. I would say it would be difficult.
Yeah,
he gets tired in his fights. I mean, he's not. I mean, that's been one of his. I think his worst attributes is that his conditioning can sometimes be a little bit suspect.
I mean, he began his professional career, I would say, in the 230 range. He fights customarily around 245, 250 now. Lennox Lewis did the same thing, but he didn't have the same kind of musculature as Joshua. So
he was 210, Mike, initially in the amateurs.
So I didn't know. I didn't know what he was weighing in his early amateur days. I just caught onto him late 2011, 2012 in the Olympics. But again, it can be done given what we know about food and nutrition. I would just have to know his complete regimen. But it would be tough. It would be tough. I will say that. Because again, Lennox did the same thing, but his body changed. He didn't have this kind of muscle that Joshua does, and he packed on the same amount of pounds during his professional career. So that's an interesting take. That's an interesting take, indeed, Gus. One final news bit here before we go to previewing some fights and shut down the show for this evening. Devin Haney, rising lightweight prospect, signed a co-promotional deal with DAZN. I'll go to you. I'll go to you, Daniel, and then you can follow up, Gus, and then Jacob. For me, I look at this and I say this is an excellent move on Haney. One, from a financial perspective, it gives him the push that he's seeking, and given the position, given where he's signing to, it will probably push Haney right into a title shot. I mean, the WBC title is vacant now that Mikey Garcia vacated champion emeritus. You got Luke Campbell out there who will get a title shot next at the WBC title. They signed Haney, put him in there with Luke Campbell for the WBC title this summer.
We have to see where Haney's ranking is in WBC because he's young, he's very young, and he may not be ready to be the component. And Luke Campbell has at least proven himself, particularly against Donaire, and that he's ready to be at least a world level challenger.
Currently, Haney is ranked number 3 by the BC.
Okay, so then that makes sense then. But this entire move makes perfect sense for him in the sense of the way that he's been able to pretty much graduate from Showbox pretty easily now and do something that, in the way Shakur Stevenson's been trying to do, even though Shakur Stevenson had a pretty big promoter for a while, which is fast track your way into a world title. Haney has started to do that, and he's been trying to do that by himself. As like the kid has been promoting himself along with other people this entire time. Now he has an infrastructure where he can do it at. He'll have an opportunity to do it. And it's a very, very great move in that part. And it also shows something when I mentioned, like when you look at Showbox cards, a lot of times Showbox cards do have ties to the PBC. So some people figure automatically that a good amount of Showbox fighters, a good amount, not all, a good amount will wind up going to the PBC. But this is now showing that like high caliber blue chip prospects are no longer just looking at the avenue. Oh, I'm Showbox. I may have to look to Al Heyman. Now you're looking at Eddie Hearn. Now you're looking at the Zone, and it opens up the field.
I'll go to you, Gus. Just the next progression, the next step for one Devin Haney. If you want to make any real moves in the sport, you have to move. You have to make moves, and that's what Haney is doing here, moving from Showbox to DAZN. As I mentioned, good move for Haney business-wise. Given the money that DAZN has, I mean, hell, they just paid Jesse Vargas $1.2 million to beat a faded ancient Humberto Soto last weekend on the Srisaket Estrada card. Puts him in position for the title shot at WBC, and guess who it freezes out? Teofimo Lopez, who's been running his mouth a lot, talking Loma, talking a title shot against, Loma has said he would not. Why would he fight Teofimo when Teofimo hasn't done anything? Teofimo has responded, going for the WBC title. Well, if Haney gets that opportunity before then, that freezes Teofimo out. So, from all perspectives, for me, Gus, wise move, sensible move from both parties.
You know, Mike, Eddie Hearn has to change his strategy, and I think he's slowly realizing that what his endeavors thus far have failed, and pretty badly as well. Now he's tried to bring over a lot of UK fighters, sign him on the DAZN US, up against American fighters on American cards, which is not the wise strategy at all. I don't think American boxing fans necessarily want to see that. So, plus he's signing. Let's take, like, you know, when he signed Srisaket or Rungvisai because he wanted to make a rematch with Estrada. Now, for a hardcore boxing fan, that's a fantastic fight, but US boxing fans don't really know Srisaket, so there's no surprise that fight didn't sell out well, and I'm not sure how many viewers they had on DAZN. So he's got to radically rethink his strategy about signing, you know, US fighters, guys who can actually, you know, move the needle. Now, Devin Haney is potentially one of those, a young upstart, you know, ambitious character. So it's a promotion. It's a partnership because he has his own promotional company, which him and his father sort of run. So they're very excited about joining forces with Eddie Hearn, using his, you know, economies of scale and his financial capital, and the fact that he's overpaying fighters because he's obviously desperate, you know, to sign US fighters. So he's in that position where, you know, as you mentioned, paying Jesse Vargas 1.2 million. You know, a Jesse Vargas who just suddenly looked jacked up with back knee that we mentioned as well, you know, knocking out Humberto. So, you know, but Devin Haney, I think it's a great signing. And as to this fight, Mike, when you look at the rankings of the WBC now, Luke Campbell will definitely fight for the vacant title. Now, the guy in position number 2, he may not fight Luke Campbell because it's all about when the fight is made, because he'll be observing Ramadan. So if he's out for that particular period, there is a strong possibility that Devin Haney could actually step in and take that fight. Eddie Hearn was on camera with Devin Haney recently talking about that. So don't be surprised to see that fight. It's all about potentially when they'll make it. But Haney seemed confident that he would be willing, to step in and make the fight. Eddie Hearn said that if that fight with Haney happens, it happens in the United States. So Haney wouldn't have to travel, which I think will suit him as well. Luke Campbell was going to fight in the United States anyway, so I don't think he has any problems. He was talking about fighting Garcia in the States. He's fought Linares over here, so
And gave a really good account for himself in that fight.
yeah, and apparently he's got very good reputation. He's got a lot of fans in the US who was quite impressed with his style as well.
And people were impressed by his last fight, his last outing in the States as well. He fought, his last fight was in the States, so people were impressed by that.
Yeah, that's right. He hooked up with Shane McGuigan, changed his style a little bit. So him and Haney, I don't know, Mike. I think Haney. I would put him on the DAZN card initially, Mike. Maybe a couple of fights, a world title fight straight away with Luke Campbell. From what I've seen with Devin Haney, Mike, now you've seen him a hell of a lot more than me. To me, he has the elements of like a Felix Trinidad, where to me it looks like he doesn't like to be hit, Mike. There's just some fighters that don't react well when they're hit. Ryan Garcia is definitely as one as well. Haney, I got that impression when he was just didn't like it at all. So I don't know how well he's going to take a punch, Mike. So I think there's still some work that needs to be done there. But I've only briefly seen him. You guys are the expert. You told me to go and see him, so I went out and had a little look. Impressive skills, but I don't know. I think he's fragile, Mike.
Moves around a little bit too. Very good fighter. My only drawback against him is that at times he moves around a little bit too much. I would like to see him fight more in a tight circle. Other than that, power, we just don't know yet because the competition, speed is there, hand and foot. I think he has a decent IQ, but he hasn't really been hit. Campbell's better than a lot of people think. Loma dominates that division, but outside of that, Campbell can fight with anyone. I even think he'll give Mikey Garcia a good battle. So it will be an interesting fight. The experience that Campbell gained from the Linares fight, I think that has benefited. He's benefited from that greatly. I would make that more of a 50-50 fight than people think. People will make Haney the absolute favorite because of his hand and foot speed, but based on what I've seen from Campbell and the improvement since that Linares fight, I think that's pretty much a toss-up. Either guy could win that. I go to you, Jacob. Your thoughts on the DAZN signing of one Devin Haney?
I mean, I think it's a great signing. I mean, he's obviously an a up and comer that I think has a skill set, but kind of like you guys are saying, like we don't, I think as he steps up his level of competition, we'll really get to see, how if he's able to put that together. But I think it's good. I mean, I think Gus hit on a really excellent point in the sense of how DAZN needs to build their market and fan base. By a lot of casuals don't know a lot of the they don't even know a lot of the fighters in general, but specifically fighters that are not hometown fighters. So I mean, you have a market, and the U.S. is weird in the way where if you go into certain pockets, you can build a market there, like Bob Arum has done in Fresno, or like he's done with Crawford and Omaha, and different things like that. If a fighter's from like Maryland, you can go fight to one of those things, and they'll pack that place. So you can do things by staging fights, and if you get some American fighters in their like hometown and actually do pretty good numbers as far as attendance, and then viewership. Hopefully he'll have to build off that. He has signed a lot of the I guess the bigger names, like the Canelo and things like that. So I think he's counting on that to hopefully boost viewership. But I think it's a good signing. I mean, you want to see these young guys get the opportunities to make some money and get some good fights. So hopefully that's what happens.
Okay, let's move on to preview some fights that's coming up. Of course, the big fight happening this weekend, Cinco de Mayo weekend. Excuse me. Canelo Alvarez fighting Daniel Jacobs. Alvarez BC belt, Jacobs IBF belt, middleweight. Again, I mentioned that Gail from Communities Digital News, she's not here because she's en route to that fight. I'll go to you first, Gus. Your thoughts on the fight, your keys. Who do you have winning? And more importantly, who are you placing your bet on?
Mike, it's not a fight that I'm specifically looking forward to. Canelo has really fucked me off over the years. We know he's an entitled, privileged, manipulate the rules of engagement. Protected by, he's insulated. I can give you 292 million reasons as to why Daniel Jacobs is not winning this fight. And I say, and with regards to Jacobs, Mike, now, I went back and I watched his fight with Masij Solanki 3 times today and yesterday. I can barely give Danny Jacobs 4 rounds in that fight. For every 1 hard punch he landed, Masij came back with 3 punches. He outworked, he outboxed Jacob. I don't think Danny Jacobs won that fight. I've watched it in slow motion as well, Mike. I've done my own punch stats. I can't see. Personally, I don't think Danny, and I think I'm very good at scoring a fight. I don't think Danny Jacobs won that fight. Nope. So, as I've always said, I think Jacobs is overrated. I think in a way that the Sergey Dermianchenko was good preparation for a Canelo fight, a short, stockier sort of fighter, pressure fighter. So, and Canelo conversely had a Rocky Fielding, a sort of a taller, rangier fighter. So he had no problems in dealing with that longer reach. I think Alvarez, I think Danny Jacobs is going to have to box from the outside. If he tries to engage with Alvarez, I think he's going to be in trouble. He's going to try and bulk up to try and negate, the onslaught from Alvarez. He's not going to have the hand speed, I think, inside the pocket. He's going to try and even switch hit as well. He's going to have to keep the fight long as possible. We know Alvarez has got quite bad feet, but he's deceptive. But he's slowly got better over the years. His ability to set some traps now, cut off the ring a little bit, is improved, but not significantly. Jacobs is still much the better athlete, but Alvarez is an explosive puncher. We know that.
Excuse me for interrupting. You mentioned Canelo's footwork. Canelo was sporting knee brace for the second fight with Golovkin. He's still wearing a knee brace now. Had the knee brace before Canelo due to surgery. Any concerns on your part that even this amount of time after the surgery for that second fight with Canelo, that he's still wearing a knee brace basically a year later?
If it's a legitimate injury and he's wearing it for genuine reasons, then, and it inhibits his movements, then it would be a concern. But I'm not sure whether he's mentioned any sort of difficulties in the ring. It was a cyst, no, he had a surgery for. Is that correct?
I can't remember. Daniel Jacob, do you remember what was the initial surgery for on his knee?
I think it was a scope. There's just knee scoping.
If it was meniscus, that would be 6 months to recover. If it's a broken patella or anything like that, that would be a lot No, I don't think. I don't think it's
I'm with you,
legitimate.
Gus, man. I think he maybe is doing this to do a couple things. One, to show that, like, to show the illusion that he's vulnerable,
Yeah.
and then also if he does lose, then he can always kind of go, oh well, I wasn't 100%.
Yep. Yep. I think you're absolutely right. But I can see Canelo winning the fight, Mike. It's not even going to be. Jacobs is going to be 3 rounds down before the first bell even sound. He ain't going to get a decision in Vegas. Although this is Eddie Hearn going against Oscar De La Hoya, the two DAZN lead promoters, so bit of rivalry there. Maybe they could have a draw and have a high-profile rematch. Wouldn't be surprised if it's in Vegas if that sort of thing happens. But
Nah, because that would delay a third match between Canelo and Triple G. You know, that would delay a third match between Canelo and Triple G ain't got that time to waste. He just don't.
Canelo won points, but I think he's got a possibility of a knockout as well. Like I think he's fighting. You know, I mean, Golovkin fought a better Daniel Jacobs than what Canelo is fighting. So I think he's broken down a little bit. I think he's worn down. Canelo may even get him out of there, Mike.
Mm-hmm. I'll go to you, Jacob. Your thoughts, your predictions, if you will, for the fight.
I mean, it's close to kind of what Gus was saying. I mean, I don't think there's a fucking chance in hell that they give Jacobs a decision, even if he wins the fight. I mean, Canelo just seems to. I mean, I always go back to that freaking Floyd Mayweather fight where he had a draw on one of the cards, which was you can watch that fight a million times and you would never come up with the draw. So the fact that he gets favorable scorecards, I think Jacobs has to like definitively knock him out or stop him. That's basically his only chance. So in the way I thought he beat Golovkin, Jacobs, I think he's gonna potentially win the fight, like most in the minds of most people, but on points he's gonna lose to Canelo. They'll give him the fight unless he knocks him out. I'm hoping he does that because Jacobs is the bigger guy. I mean, the posters, don't let the posters fool you. They put him at the same height, but when they're face to face, Jacobs is going to be the bigger guy. My only problem with Jacobs, he has good hand speed. He has skill. But I still question his chin a little bit, because he did get put down by, I think it was Sergio Mora, in their fight. And he's lost before by, I think, by stoppage, by knockout.
Yeah, a lot of
early
people still cannot get that Pirog fight out their heads when they talk Jacobs.
Yeah, but I also think that Canelo's power is overrated, just like I thought Triple G's power is overrated. So, Canelo hasn't had really. I mean, yeah, he stopped Rocky Fielding, but Rocky Fielding was a fucking joke fight. He wasn't. That wasn't a real test. But like anybody he's fought, he hasn't really he didn't even really technically stop Angulo, who was a faded Angulo. I mean, he was beating the shit out of him, but he was still standing. He didn't drop him. The ref stepped in and stopped that fight. But even against Chavez Jr., where Chavez didn't even throw any punches back, he didn't stop him. So I think if Jacobs can just be smart and look to not waste his punches and just land some good combinations. He should definitely go to the body because he knows Canelo is going to go to the body. But fight fire with fire in that sense. Just break him down. I think he can win this fight. But again, if it goes to the judges, I just don't think they're going to give it to him. So my pick is Jacobs. Is going to win, but they're going to give Canelo the decision. Unfortunately.
I'll go to you, Daniel. Your thoughts. Your thoughts, Daniel?
He's lost for words.
Yeah, I don't think Daniel's there. He's on mute, so I'll give my prediction right quick. Uh, as you guys mentioned, Gus and Jacob, Daniel Jacobs probably will need a knockout to win. My thing is, even though Jacobs is the significantly bigger fighter, he'll probably be close to 180 pounds once he enters the ring. I don't know if he has the power even.
Wait, can he? I thought they had like a clause where they couldn't. They the same day weigh in.
Oh,
They can't be over a certain.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I thought it wasn't, but it could be that.
I thought it was like no more than 10 pounds or something like that.
But
I think it might be
that's IBF though. No IBF titles on the line. I know the IBF as a sanctioning body states that you can't put on more than 10 pounds. I don't
No,
know.
but I thought they agreed to like a penalty. They had a
Okay.
little side deal where they said, I think it was like, I can't remember, for each pound it was a certain amount. I want to say it was like 200,000 or something crazy like that. I think I might be wrong.
Okay, okay. Let's assume that still, he's still going to be the significantly bigger fighter. But one thing you can say about Canelo, he has a good beard. He can take a shot, and
yes.
I don't know if Jacobs has the power to knock him out. Plus, I have to give Canelo credit here for improvement over the years. He's become a better fighter technically. He uses his head a lot more. He doesn't get hit nearly as much as he used to. Um, if he can employ the strategy of not the second Triple G fight, but the first Triple G fight, where he has to make Jacobs come to him, he can win that way because Jacobs, you can hit him. Jacobs is not the only fight I've seen Jacobs really, really consistent throughout for 12 rounds was the first Triple G bout, where he was really, really on it. He hasn't fought that way since, and really, he never fought that way before. He really rose to the occasion in the Triple G fight, and I don't know if he could do it
Quillen's
again.
fight, he rose to the occasion.
Who?
Quillen.
But that's Quillen. Quillen's easy to hit. That's Quillen.
Yeah, but I mean, if that was considered at the time a 50-50 fight. That he blew him out in the first round.
I never thought that. Quillen's, he's too raw. He doesn't have the technique. No, I don't put that there. He was you can see him. I knew he was going to lose all along. I figured he was going to get knocked out. I just didn't think he would get knocked out that soon. But I always thought Jacobs was going to win. Again, the inconsistency of Jacobs. I hadn't seen him fight that level he did the first Triple G fight. Canelo has improved. He can take a punch, and the general consensus is that if the fight is close in any reasonable way, Canelo's going to get it. So I'm going with Canelo here by decision. I see Daniel's back. Your thoughts on the fight, Daniel?
Yeah, it's an interesting look when you have of it, because even Rocky Fielding aside, because it's Rocky Fielding, a fighter that's taller than Canelo may have a long reach. Canelo may, in a way, try to bother Canelo in a way, especially with a fighter that does have the agility that Jacobs has. The problem is going to be Jacobs is in a very bad position. You're fighting Canelo, a Mexican, and Cinco de Mayo weekend. And yeah, you're in a situation where you have to knock him out to win. And Jacobs, like I said, he hasn't exactly the best performances as of late, especially as a Triple G fight, but it does present a dynamic when it comes to Canelo, because at least aesthetically, not overall, but at least aesthetically, Jacobs gives Canelo a template to like another fighter that I may have to see in the future, Jamal Charlo. Yeah, Jacobs doesn't have the same body frame, but they have similar skill sets, so that's something that can help him in the future. So it'll be good for Canelo to see it, but I agree when it comes to it. I think Canelo will win it. I think he'll win it on points, but it could be one of those situations where some people will view that Jacobs won.
talk about a couple of more fights here before we end the show. Artur Beterviev is going to be fighting the same night as Canelo, and Jacob's going to be fighting on, I think, ESPN. The opponent, I'm going to lean on y'all. I ain't even going to try to pronounce this dude's name because I will butcher it. I don't know much about him at all. Gus, have you seen any footage of this guy? Jacob, Daniel, have you seen any footage of this guy? Again, um, I'm ignorant of this of the opponent that Berta be fighting. My apologies for that. That being the case, again, I'm going to you guys to talk about this. Your thoughts on Artur Bertabiev's next fight, upcoming fight, excuse me, on Saturday.
Don't know much about the opponent, but that's pretty much what I expect from a top rank card. Whereas you're gonna have to build him up. You have to keep him on the belt. You have to keep it relevant because right now between those two, between all the belt holders and light heavyweight, outside of Bibble, who's now with DAZN, the fight you want to see among the other people is Kovalev versus Beterviev. So you're not going to risk doing anything to upset the apple cart over here, especially in a fight that's as big of a grudge match as Kovalev versus Beterviev. So I'm not surprised we got an opponent that we barely heard anything about, unless you're willing to go watch like Russian videos. But I expect a probably good performance for Beterviev, and I expect him to call out Kovalev afterwards.
Any thoughts on this, Gus, Jacob?
Yeah.
Interesting enough.
Go on, Jacob. Sorry about it. Carry on.
No worries. Interesting enough, though. He's Russian, but I'm looking at his box rec. He's only fought in the U.S.
Kalajdzic. Yeah, it's Kalajdzic who fought Marcus Brown and beat him a couple of years ago, I felt.
No. He lost a split decision. He had Brown down in the 6th and Kalajdzic down in round 1. But even that would be the only significant fight that I've seen. That was at the Barclays. But I mean, all his fights have been in the U.S. So he's, mostly in Tampa. It looks like, So he's St. Petersburg. His residence is in St. Petersburg, Florida. I don't know much about this guy. I mean, I'd have to watch some video on him, but maybe Gus will know more.
Yeah, Mike, he's essentially a Canelo sparring partner. Specifically and exclusively, yeah, they used him for a number of years, but he got his shine a little bit, did a little bit in that Marcus Brown fight, Mike. Go back and watch that. I felt he won that fight. But he's got too much of an expansive power punching style. I think didn't he fight Solomon Barrera in the little shootout and he got knocked out? I'm sure they fought. Jacob,
was that card on? Was that a PBC card on Fox? You talking about?
I don't show it. I don't show it Jacob, here that he's fought Mark. I mean, Barrera. That Brown is the only name. Is the only name I see on here. I don't see Barrera anywhere.
He fought. I swear he fought Solomon Barrera in the shootout. It was.
I think you're thinking of what was the guy that's fought? So I think I know who you're talking about.
I thought it was Kalajdzic. I thought it was Hot Rod who fought him. Who fought Barrera? No.
No. So see Barrera. Yeah, I don't see him on here. I mean, there's Shabransky.
There was Shabransky. Yeah, I got that. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. It was Shabransky he fought.
Because Shabransky was down in round 1, 5, and 7. Barrera was down in round 2.
Yeah, fought in Indio. Yeah.
Yeah, Fantasy Springs.
Yeah. Anything else about this guy, Gus?
Yeah, I think it's a disappointing fight, Mike. He can fight. Don't get me wrong. He was very good in that Marcus Brown fight, and we know Brown is a very heavy-handed, tricky sort of opponent. But Beterviev, one thing about him, Mike, he's very, very bad going on the back foot. If you can push him back the same way Callum Johnson did and hurt him inside the pocket, where he floored him with that big left hook, but he wasted, what was it, 40 seconds when he got up, when Beterviev was badly hurt.
Yes.
So if that's Beterviev has always been his vulnerability, you know. If you can push him back, get him on the back foot, but he's very heavy-handed. 2 hands, and he can knock you out even from a stationary position, as he's done in the amateurs. Incredible knockouts there as well. I saw him live in London. I expect Beterbiev to win, Mike, but what the fuck is happening to his career? He's in his mid-30s or whatever else now. Had opportunities, but he just negative fights one after the other with Top Rank, ESPN. No indications of any sort of reunifications now. I don't know what's going on with this guy, Mike.
I mean, it was basically all set up for him to fight Kovalev in a grudge match, basically a year, 2 years ago, but he got muddled up in promotional battles and manager promotional battles with the Frenchman, and his career was put to a halt. And yes, he's come back. He just signed with DAZN, but you mentioned the fight in which he got knocked down in, and he's just in the middle of the road with the rest, and you just don't know where he's going right now. Let's move on to talk about one more fight. Jerwin Ancajas, who's, in my opinion, has looked shaky in his last couple of bouts. Fighting his mandatory contender, #1 contender out of Japan by the name of Funai. I'm going to you guys. Looking at this is an opportunity for Ancajas to win the fans back, because Funai is a guy who he can really look good against. He should win this. He should win this rather easily, and he should be impressive in winning. Funai, who fought Shinzuki Yamanaka maybe 10 years ago or so, lost by decision. Both of them were young prospects on the come up early in their professional careers. But based on the footage I've seen, which hasn't been that much, too awkward, not the technical fighter, not on the technical level skill-wise that Ancajas is, not the sharpness that Ancajas is. Plus, Funai is 33 years old. This should be Ancajas all the way, Gus.
Yeah, brief, Mike. You summed it up perfectly. This is specifically designed to get Jerwin Ancajas a stoppage, even a knockout. You know, he has not looked good. It's not a good marketing. It's not a good sort of promotional stance from Top Rank, who are putting a lot of money in this fighter. So they need to get him back up with the public, who are getting a little bit disillusioned with him, thinking maybe he's not as good, not in that vein of a Manny Pacquiao. So yeah, I think it's a showcase for him. I think he'll win. I think he might even stop him with some body shots. Funai is a lot softer these days, Mike. I think he's there for the taking.
Any thoughts on this fight, Daniel or Jacob?
I tend to agree. Go ahead, Jacob.
No, I was just saying because he said Daniel Jacobs, so I was Daniel or Jacob. I was like, Daniel Jacobs?
Daniel or Jacob, my apologies. So you tend to agree, Daniel?
Yeah, I tend to agree. Ancajas hasn't looked good in his last fights, and this is the bad thing about Filipino fighters, whereas Benitez and here Ancajas, you do have the curse of Pacquiao happening, where everybody's going to compare to Manny, and if you have a shaky performance, then people really start going down really bad on it, and Ancajas can't really afford that at this stage. So this is pretty much set up for him to get showcased, get a knockout, like I said, get himself back into the mix, like I said, the top guys in the division, particularly, like I said, how we talked about in the first fight, when you have somebody now like Estrada with a belt, you still have SSR out there, and you still want to make Kalajdzic fight a weak link. So that's definitely something that they're going to try to set up to make him look good, because Yeah, granted, we talked about the crowd size and all that, but that division is probably one of the most exciting divisions in the sport right now, and you want to stay in that mix.
Any thoughts on this, Jacob?
I mean, with the Ancajas, I've never been that impressed with him. Even when they were saying he's, the next Manny, which Daniel hit on, as far as I guess the Filipino curse, just kind of like how Puerto Rico has, the Tito curse with Cotto and Verdejo. I think he'll probably win the fight, but he's definitely, in my opinion, one of the weak links of Superfly. So even if he wins, if he gets a fight with one of those top guys, I think he's gonna lose, and he's gonna lose bad.
One final news bit. I'm saving this just for you, Gus. I'm hearing that Kenshiro, his next title defense is going to be mandatory on the undercard of Brant Murata 2 in Japan in July. If that's the case, you know what that opens up the possibility for a unification bout against Koiguchi. Your thoughts?
Who's his mandatory, Mike? I haven't looked at the
Takoning, a Filipino fighter by the name of Takoning, who fought for the WBC belt twice before.
Yeah.
He's 33, so this is probably going to be his last shot. But
Yeah.
the possibility, should he win, opens the door for that unification bout. Your thoughts?
Mike? Did you ever see the sparring? It's somewhere could be on YouTube between Kiyoguchi and Kenshiro.
No, I haven't.
Yeah, go back and watch that. Shiro, he was getting some smoke from this kid before he'd even gone up to 112. So, so yeah, if that fight happens, that's a tremendous fight. There was some bad needle between the two as well, a little bit. So, I welcome that fight. Me personally, that division, junior fly is the best in boxing for me. 108, I think. So many fight. We've talked about it weeks and weeks, Mike. But if that fight happens, that's the right path. Them two, Kenshiro, Hyoguchi, Angel Acosta, Alvarado, and the winners take all the belts with the Lineal Ring magazine. You couldn't get a better scenario for that. So, if the wheels are in motion, fantastic.
Indeed, and I think we're going to end the show on that note. Again, I want to thank Big Rotten Apple. I want to thank Olaf. I want to thank Unrivaled Boxing Talking News for joining us on the live YouTube show, for listening live on YouTube, as well as their commentary in the YouTube chat room, as well as me, myself, and I. He was listening live to us as well. Again, apologies for Gail. She's en route to the Canelo Jacobs fight in Las Vegas. That's why she couldn't make it this evening. Hope to have her back next week. Going to go around the panel.
Is this Gus's fault though? Because he was talking about guys love boxing.
Oh no, I don't know.
Sorry, my love.
Going to go around the panel here. Let's start off with Gus from Corruption. Gus from Corruption and Boxing. For those who want to talk the sweet science, for those who want to talk music, let the folks know where they can hit you up.
Mike, very last bit of news, but you guys aware that Ryan Burnett, who left Matchroom, he's gone with Top Rank now, ESPN.
Yes, I did. I just didn't talk about it here. As you know, I don't think much of Ryan Barnett. To be personally, I like to see what direction they take him, particularly in light of the World Boxing Super Series and then Donaire bout. Where do they go? But yeah, I've heard of it. I heard of it.
Fuck him. Fuck Burnett. Yeah, Corruption in YouTube. Yeah, you can catch me on YouTube, Corruption in Boxing. I'll get back into doing some videos. I did a 20-minute breakdown, Estrada, Srisaket, and Doheny, Daniel and Man. So I'm going to do some more breakdowns this weekend, and I'm the World Boxing Super Series. I'm going to be breaking down that fight as well. Both of them, tremendous card. That's the week after, yeah, Mike, after the Canelo fight. Is that right?
2 weeks after, actually. 2 weeks.
After. Okay.
Going to Daniel from the Inscriber for those who want to talk the sweet science, for those who want to talk the NBA, especially when it comes to Miami Heat. For those who want to check him out on Twitter, I'm clapping back against nonsense. Let the folks know where they can find you, Daniel.
Yes, you can find me on Twitter, Rockets99. Like I said, I have my show with the good folks for BoxingNews.com, Jerwin Francis. Mostly can have it. Hopefully, I have it on tomorrow, and we'll definitely talk about the fights. And we're gonna dig into like the whole plethora it's coming into because May's looking pretty nice. I'm just crossing my fingers and nothing bad happens, but May's looking pretty nice.
Yeah, look, May is looking to be a very good month in boxing. Last but certainly not least, Jacob from Jab Hook Boxing. For those who want to talk the sweet science, and for those who want to talk movie, you're not a regular guest, but you're a frequent guest. Sometimes guest, I should say, on the Wrong Real podcast. Let the folks know where they can hit you up.
Yeah, Mike, thanks for having me back on the show as always, and thanks to the panel. It's good to talk to Gus. It's been a long time since I talked to him, but follow his channel. He does good stuff. I haven't been able to watch your video yet, Gus, but I'm gonna do that probably right after this. But I love his breakdowns, and if you need to place any bets, he's the man to talk to. But yeah, you can find me.
I'll take all your money.
But you can find me on Twitter at JRATM23, or if it's a local fight in LA, a lot of times I'll go to them. Sometimes I got to pick and choose if there's too much going on because I got a family and I got to make an appearance at home sometimes. But also, yeah, thanks for plugging. Yeah, I have a friend, James Hancock in New York, and he has a Wrong Real podcast. It's a movie podcast. I actually just recorded an episode this last Saturday, so the day after the fights, and it's a Steven Soderbergh episode that'll be released probably in the next couple of weeks. So you can look for my appearance on that with a gentleman, Matthias Van der Roos, who's in the Netherlands, and we've done an episode before. I've done an episode before with him, but we're doing basically go through his filmography and top five. But yeah, and if you guys can support Mike, he's got the donation button. Support him on the show. He does a good show here, and anything you can give him, it's appreciated.
I don't want to be don't want to give you. I don't want you to give any spoilers, but will there be any discussion about Endgame?
He actually also has a video. It's called Geekin NYC on YouTube, and so he did do a kind of a review of that after he had saw it on opening night. So he does little side things, but I'm sure they'll probably do a episode where they kind of look at the whole. They've done a couple episodes where they looked at the Marvel universe as a whole, like up to a certain point. So this has been a 11 years saga that they've done, and so they've done some pretty crazy things. Did you get to see it?
Not yet.
Oh man,
I will though.
You guys see it. It's pretty awesome.
Indeed. Again, I want to thank those who are watching this on YouTube, for those who are watching now or will be watching in the upcoming days. If you like what you hear, please hit that like button. Please hit the subscribe button. Also subscribe to us on iTunes, SoundCloud, Spotify. If you want to talk boxing, if you want to talk music, if you want to talk fitness with me, you know what it is on Twitter, Brother JR at Brother JR76. And as I said to begin the show, if you want to find out all things regarding Pound for Pound Boxing Report, blog page is the place to go to. B4PBoxingReport.wordpress.com. Check the right of the page. Links to where to find us on social media, links to where to find us on all platforms that carry podcasts. And as Jacob said, there is a donate button, a Cash Me as well as a PayPal button. So if you want to donate, let donation be the best nation. I don't care how much you donate. 50 cents, $1, $2, $5, $10. If you want to donate more, please do. On the next, also, if you're into fitness, check out the Beachbody link there, Beachbody Coach. Check that out as well. So there you go. On the next episode, we will do a recap of Canelo, Alvarez, and Danny Jacobs. We'll do a recap of Beterviev and his bout. Do a recap of Ancajas and Funai, and we will do preview of upcoming fights that's happening on the 11th. Jared Hurd is coming back to the ring. He's fighting in basically his home area of the DMV. He's going to be fighting J. Rock Williams.
Good fight.
Very good fight. Very good
Yeah,
fight. We'll
good
talk about
fight.
that a lot. Miguel Burchell, he's fighting his rematch with Francisco Vargas. Emmanuel Navarrete, who surprised many by just whipping Isaac Dogboe. He's going to be fighting a rematch against Dogboe. So we'll talk about those fights. And we may do a recap of, let me check the fight. We didn't talk about this fight. On the undercard of Canelo and Jacobs, there's a very good junior welterweight prospect by the name of
Ortiz. Yeah.
Virgil Ortiz Jr. He's going to be fighting Mauricio Herrera. I think Jojo Diaz.
Tremendous puncher.
Yeah, and I think
Yeah.
Jojo Diaz is going to be fighting on that undercard as well. So we may touch into those fights. So yeah, for Gus from Corruption and Boxing, uh, Daniel from The Inscriber, Jacob from Jab Hook, I'm your host, Michael. This has been episode 249 of Pound for Pound Boxing Report. Again, I want to thank everybody who joined us in the live YouTube chat. Me, myself, Big Rotten Apple, Olaf, Unrivaled Boxing Talk and News. Again, episode 249, Pound for Pound Boxing Report. We will see you guys next time. Everyone have a good evening. Good night.
Shout out to Bo and to Gail as well.
Shout
Yeah.
out to Bo and Gabe. Bo, by the way, who will be at the fight as well as Gail. Bo will be covering the fight for Three Kings Boxing. Gail will be at the fight for Communities Digital News. Wish them best and safe travels, and hope they have them. Hope they have a good time, and they will probably come back with maybe some exclusive content for us at Pound for Pound. So again, shout out to them, and again, episode 249, Pound for Pound Box Report. Have a good one, folks.
Sayonara.
See ya.
Good night, folks.